Hello, and welcome to this session on coaching creativity in the classroom. I'd like to start with a warm thank you to Christina, who is our boots on the ground, and I am hailing all the way from Alturas, California. Bonus points to anybody who knows where that is. Just a couple notes on how this session will be run. I'm going to be using an app called Nearpod, and I have it in self-paced mode so that you can go forward or backwards in the slide deck as I'm presenting. And then you can participate in some real-time activities. I would highly encourage you to either use the QR code that's on your screen, or you can go to join.nearpod.com and put in this 5-digit code, and you can join the session. It'll be active for about a month, so you can utilize that. You can also put it in your own library if you're a Nearpod nut like myself. And just would love to have you join in these activities that we'll be doing together. This is, after all, a session about creativity, and I would love to have some co-creators in the room. So once again, if you go to join.nearpod.com, you can type in that 5-digit code, or you can just simply scan the QR code. So my name is Daniel Roeder, and I am the Chief Academic Officer at the David Z Foundation, where we transform lives through the magic of music. And I'm also a special education teacher. I taught high school for the last 4 years at a small rural school in California. And I'm currently teaching as now a fourth grade teacher, third grade last year. And so that's kind of my life, is music and education. So I think I'm in the right place. So I always like to start out with a little SEL activity. If you're following along with the Nearpod, which I hope you are, then go ahead and take a moment as I'm scrolling through and doing some of the scope of this, and just let me know how you're feeling. You can draw it, you can add some images to it, however you're feeling creative right now. I always like to just do a good check-in to see what the energy in the room is, if we're all feeling like energetic, or if we're feeling kind of like I need coffee or whatever. Just nice to kind of see what the room is like. So today's objectives, we're going to actually start by nerding out on why. Like, why do we do music, and why should music be in every classroom and not just music classrooms in a school? That's one of my core beliefs. And we're going to talk about 5 reasons why music in general. Then we'll move on to some very practical apps, just some kind of a toolkit of music creation tools, ranging from really involved to super easy and just fun. Then we're actually going to write together. Like, that's fun, right? We'll have a little songwriting experience, and I'll show you a couple of models for what you can do to create songs within your classrooms, whether you're teaching in a music classroom or not. It's actually applicable to any space where you have people learning new things. And then finally, we're going to share some ideas and resources, and we'll have a Q&A session at the end. So some essential questions to wrap our minds around as we get started. Number 1, how can we give students access, agency, voice, and choice in a music classroom? How can we equip students to unlock creativity and apply it to their own work? And how can we leverage the learning power of music in any classroom? So what we do in the music classroom doesn't have to stay in the music classroom or on the concert stage. We can actually teach skills that can be brought into every class and build bridges with other disciplines across the site, which is something that just excites me beyond belief. So how does the word creativity make you feel? I suspect there's probably a lot of you that it makes you feel pretty charged. And musicians tend to be a very creative bunch, music teachers and people in the music but it might make, we could surprise each other. It might make some of us feel nervous. It might make some of us want to run away, might make some of us just a little skeptical. So I'm curious to see how do you feel about music? And this will come back later. So diving right into those 5 reasons why. So the first benefit to music that I want to highlight is its ability to build resilience. Music has this incredible power to build connection and shared experience, and very often that's exactly what our students need, even if it's not necessarily apparent. Our students come into our classroom with a lot of different moments before. They could be just coming from a test, which is a high anxiety event. They could be coming from a fight with a friend or a loved one. They could be coming from the best experience of their life. Maybe they just got out of PE and they hit a home run or something. We just never know where they're coming from. But when we create an environment that is academically, emotionally, and physically safe, we at least know what they're coming into. And I always like to remember Maslow before Bloom, or in other words, making sure that we're taking care of that whole human in front of us before we try and teach them all the things that we want to teach them and the ways that we want to see them grow. They have to be ready for that, and they have to feel like they belong. They have to feel like they can ask questions, and they have to feel like it's okay to fail. It's okay to make mistakes. And there's not going to be severe penalties for that. So that music can create these shared experiences together, whether it's just taking a breath together, a breath, organized sound, and silence. A lot of silence, but still music. Or maybe tackling a really complex passage in the Bach Magnificat and just kind of nailing it, one of those melismas. Music can create these experiences in so many different ways, but the benefit is the same, is that we're building connection, we're building relational capacity, and we're building those steps for self-esteem and for self-actualization. Secondly, I'd like to talk about mnemonics and that powerful learning capacity that music has when we attach language to melody. I'm sure we're all familiar with the alphabet song. You can barely sing Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star without thinking about your ABCs. But there are also so many other ways that music can kind of hook us with language. If you think of Conjunction Junction from Schoolhouse Rock, we just you sing Conjunction Junction, and then we know the next part is what's your function, and then we can think, oh, it's hooking up phrases and clauses and modifiers, so we can fill in the blank even if we haven't heard the song for a long time, because music is so complex and so cross-brain. We can recall things from these sensory experiences. So on that note, music can also help us remember things long-term. There is a study by Ebbinghaus called The Forgetting Curve, where he's talking about retention and how many times you need to hear things. We hear something, we have that acquisition of information, and then the immediate recall, we can just repeat it back. But then just 20 minutes later, if you look at the chart, our retention has dropped about half. As more time goes on, if we don't have that repetition, then we kind of lose that acquisition that we just learned, unless we have the repetition. If you think of a chorus of a song, it's that thing that comes back like 4 times. So in just the short 2 minutes of a song, you're getting all of those repetitions of the same material. So if we're putting something that we want to learn into that chorus of a song, we're getting the repetition, that one time we're listening to the song. If we listen to the song on repeat, then we're really kind of battling Ebbinghaus's forgetting curve. So that's one of the benefits to learning through music, is that it can help us remember things, not just in the short term and not just kind of those hooky mnemonics, but also in the long term. We can just recall that because it's been consolidated in our long-term memory. Another incredible benefit is in spatial temporal reasoning. And this is on the perception action cycle. Um, any information that is coming in, we're perceiving it. We have this existing concept or schema of what's going on with what we perceive, and then we automatically predict what's going to happen. Our brain is hardwired for that. It's survival wired. So, we see some danger and we think, should I get out of the way or should I take it head on? So then we make an action, there's an outcome, and then we perceive that outcome. And so this is just the cycle of learning that goes on and on and on. And an example of something that happens all the time in music is a deceptive cadence. We're if we start on the 1 chord, go to the 5 chord, go back to the 1 chord, 4, 5, you think you're going to 1, but you got a deceptive cadence, you go to 6. And so, when we defy that prediction, then we perceive something unexpected. So we might take different actions. So music has this incredible complexity to it that has this going on all the time. We're constantly doing this prediction action cycle of learning. And so when we're listening to a piece of music, it's one of the reasons that it has our brain firing on all cylinders. If you've read the famous Mozart studies or any of the imaging studies that are looking at brain connections and synaptic firings while listening to different types of music, we know that the more complex the music is, the more brain activity there is, the more connections there are, the more predictions that are being made on different levels, either consciously or subconsciously. So music just has that learning built into it. And finally, when used with visuals, it has just kind of riffing off of that complexity. There's a lot of potential for having patients with Alzheimer's or other memory disorders being able to recover long lost memories through music. And again, it's that cross-brain connection. It's looking at this chart, it's the complexity of the stimulus. So if we have just simple rhythms or tones, there's kind of a low complexity to that. And as we move up the chart to simple melodies where we're combining pitch and rhythms, and then more mechanical pieces, maybe MIDI controlled, where there's just a lot of things going on at the same time in really rapid sequence, all the way to more expressive ecological pieces like jazz, where there's just a lot of emotional content. The more complex the stimulus, the more it really engages our full brain, and we have a higher attention. Our arousal of mood is heightened, and we have kind of this dopamine hit. Our emotions and our reward center of our brain are triggered, and we just have that engagement. So if we're looking for attention and engagement, look no further than music, my friends. Especially when you have visuals, and visuals have that capacity to dual code, and we're adding sound and pictures together. We're learning the information in different ways, and our brain kind of maps that on different levels, and that just really deepens the learning. So just combining those visuals with sound. If you think of a music video, it's like a whole experience, because you're getting all this visual input at the same time. You're getting the auditory input, and your brain is just like on fire in a good way. So I want to introduce you to one of my neuroscience superheroes, and that's Dr. Andrew Huberman. He's got something that he calls the Learning Super Protocol, and it's basically all that we know about neuroscience up to this point in history, summarized into this 8-part protocol. So I want you to draw close attention to the first two steps, which are get alert and get focused. He calls these 2 out of the 3 non-negotiables in this protocol. To get alert and get focused is a prerequisite for any learning of any kind. Something has to grab our attention. So if we're talking about music grabbing our attention, we maybe hear these sounds and we identify it as music. And then our brain says, okay, I'm alert. I know there's something going on there. Now let's get focused around it. Let's, thinking back to that perception action cycle. What do we perceive about the music? Is it like anything we've heard before? Is it unlike anything we've heard before? So we kind of organize this schema around the music that we hear. And then we can learn about it. So those non-negotiables, get alert, get focused. Then we can learn by generating repetitions, by embracing our errors and wearing our mistakes on our sleeve, and then by randomly resting and rewarding. He says it's really important not to get an extrinsic reward really attached to a certain sequence of events or practice. You want to instead randomly reward so that our reward system in our brain doesn't just kind of get locked in a rut. Limit time giving input, which is, as teachers, one of the hardest parts of this protocol probably to master, because we're always giving input and sometimes we don't give that space that is needed. And then incorporating post-learning triggering, which can be a visual, it can be a certain sound, but all of those pieces of the protocol that are in black font, those are can be in any order to any degree, but those non-negotiables at the top in the white font with the bracket, those we just have to hold in high regard if we want our students to learn anything new. So if you think back to maybe if you've been running a music rehearsal or been teaching a lesson in general music, whatever your teaching mode is, and you get to the end of the lesson and you do some informal assessment and no student has a clue what's going on, it's probably because they weren't alert or they weren't focused. Those 2 non-negotiables to really show you anything. So I think this is incredibly important to understand in music when we're assessing, what we should do, especially if we're in a performance-based class. So just a little bit of Dr. Huberman himself talking about this protocol. And
it's only now, 2021, that we really understand at a mechanistic basis why things like sleep and non-sleep deep rest, shallow naps, brief 10-second pauses in the middle of learning, why that should increase plasticity at all. And it's because you're just grabbing more and more repetitions and you're allowing time for those neural circuits to reorder themselves, which is the basis of learning. I just briefly want to mention before I describe the protocol that any change to our nervous system can involve behavioral tools, so things that you do and things that you avoid doing, do's and don'ts. It can involve pharmacology and it can involve brain-machine interface. And so here is the protocol that grabs around the total of research and that one could incorporate into the classroom. And I want to emphasize, you don't need to incorporate all these tools, but a few of them are non-negotiable. First of all, without alertness, there is no learning whatsoever. You cannot learn in your sleep. Years ago, it was thought you could just passively listen to information in your sleep. And while there is some evidence that if you listen to information that you heard earlier that day in sleep, it can enhance learning, there's no way to learn by osmosis like the Garfield cartoon of Garfield holding the book to his forehead. It's been tried many times, and indeed it does not work. You have to be focused. Alertness is a prerequisite to focus. These 2 things work together, and we can combine them in a sort of conceptual mathematical formula to give us the ever elusive motivated state or motivation. So much has been made of motivation. Indeed, it has a neurochemical substrate called dopamine, is the molecule of motivation, not pleasure, by the way. Getting alert involves getting focused, getting alert, and that combined is what we call being motivated.
So, who doesn't want motivated students, right? Just one last little bit on this neuroscience journey we've been going on, and that's just to speak about attention networks. And there's our first two prerequisites: getting alert and getting oriented, or another word for focused, in order to execute. Our brain is designed when we need something done for safety or for learning, it will execute certain neural processes. So being able to maintain that alertness and that orientation or that focus really allows our students to execute on a higher level. And that's difficult. So, Dr. Huberman was just talking about motivation. That means that we have to keep those two prerequisites going to keep motivated students and to keep that execution of our musical practices or whatever we want our students to do to keep that going strong. So now tying all of that in to creativity and kind of the why we're here is to be able to create something together that has long-lasting educational value. When you are on the Nearpod, you'll be able to get this PDF and you can download it. But I just put some resources that range from the fun and kind of ridiculous, like Blob Opera, all the way to the really in-depth and profound and comprehensive, which is this free curriculum from Apple. Everyone can create. P.S. I don't get paid by Apple or Soundtrap or Groov Pizza or anything. All of the resources on this page are free or have free versions that you can use. This is an SEL activity that I created just to kind of use music in any classroom. But the purpose of this resource is to just give you and your students different entryways into ways to create music and ways to create these high leverage learning experiences by creating music. One of the things to highlight that we'll be using later on in this session is Groov Pizza. So we'll go kind of more in depth, but it's basically a sequencer where you can have this pizza in different slices, and it will play different beats based on those slices. And what's cool is that you can actually just drag shapes on, and it will have different steps on the sequencer. So that's the funness of Groov Pizza, and more on that later. So what we're doing right now is we're going to build something in public. I want to show you a few models for ways that you can create an engaging and enriching experience through songwriting with your students, no matter if you are in a songwriting class, or maybe you're in a general music class, maybe you're in band class, maybe you are teaching math and you just are highlighting or moonlighting as like an after school choir teacher. Whatever your story is, I'm making the claim right here, right now, that songwriting should be accessible to everyone, and it is high leverage learning for everyone. So just a few different models. This is a song that we wrote in basically an afternoon. I teach a class on Wednesdays, or I did this last school year with a group that ranged from age 3 to age 19 with a lot of different ability levels. And this is a song that we wrote actually with a representative from Soundtrap. She came in and kind of coached us on how to use the Soundtrap environment. Really great company and just really enjoyable experience. But we took let me show you actually our inspiration for the song. We took this Nearpod and just we were learning about constellations and astronomy in the month of April. And so we just went through this VR experience in a Nearpod. We were talking about like, why does this astronaut have a wrench floating in space? And we wrote a song about it. So here is that, which we wrote in just the matter of less than an hour.
Thank you, Soundtrap, for collaborating with us in the Modoc Enrichment Center, and this is the song that we made about outer space.
Woo! All right, here we go.
Lincoln, come on.
There's the shuttle door. Space is full of many stars, bright constellations, planet Mars. Traveling through a scary place, you gotta be safe in outer space. Don't forget your wrench, don't forget your wrench in the airlock, you astronaut. Don't forget your wrench, don't forget your wrench in the airlock, you astronaut. Astronaut.
Dance with you.
Astronaut. 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 So I can definitely tell you that even, I was talking about that forgetting house, or the Ebbinghaus forgetting curve. And even like a week later, I still had that melody in my head. And that was, the melody was composed by a 5-year-old. So here is another song from the same group. Just a little bit more in-depth work on the production of it. The last one was kind of raw. This one we actually used GarageBand to record the music.
Hey, you're married, quite contrary. Liberty wants to know, how does your garden grow? Need more veggies and fruits to eat. Turn up the dirt and dance to the beat. Grow a garden, place your low. There's a whole lot of growing going on. Root for the fruit. Your diet looks sketchy, don't forget your veggies. Root for the fruit. Your diet looks sketchy, don't forget your veggies. Word to your mother nature.
So, again, a very, very interesting song, but came purely from the students, and I was just working as a facilitator. So this is another level of production that we actually did with the David Z Foundation. We worked with a first grade class in San Bernardino, California. It's actually Colton, California, in San Bernardino County. And they wrote a song about adjectives, and we worked with them over about a 9-week period writing the song over Zoom, and then we went down there to shoot a music video with them. We worked with a studio in LA to record the vocals and finish the production and mastery of the track. So this is kind of that next level of production.
If you need a way of describing an animal, person, or thing, just sing. Adjectives are words that give descriptions about all nouns and pronouns. Adjectives are words that describe. I just cannot hide how much I love you. Like it when the weather is sunny.
So that was adjectives, and it was written by the first grade class in Colton, California. We went for kind of a Santana vibe. We actually had, that was our CEO, Pauly Z, on guitar, and myself on keyboards, Karini, an artist from down in the area, that was on lead vocals, and then Dale Chung, who actually has worked with Santana. So it was really kind of cool to put that music video together with the students. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to write a little bit of song, and we're going to base it off of something we probably all know. Mary Had a Little Lamb. So we know that Mary had a little lamb. Its fleece was white as snow. Everywhere that Mary went, the lamb was sure to go. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this simple nursery rhyme, and we're going to remix it into our own song. Typically when I do this workshop, we have a more interactive session, and we kind of talk about what kind of music we like. We pick a model song, and then we'll talk about what kind of song we want to write about, or what topic we want to write about, and then we kind of randomly pick a topic. But for today, I would like to assign the topic of what music means to you. So what I'd like you to do is you'll have a few minutes. We can pause the video, and you'll be able to just take this simple phrase and turn it into something about music. So here's an example I did. Music is a precious gift. It brought us here today. When our students find their voice, then learning becomes play. So that is how I just took something I already knew. I was analyzing it, and took the text stresses and the rhyming patterns and just kind of spun it into my own verse about music. So now I would challenge you to all do the same. So now that you've had a moment to write your lyrics, I want you to go ahead and, if you feel so inclined, go ahead and write or sing your lyrics here. In Nearpod, you can actually, I've enabled audio recordings, so you can go ahead and sing it if you want. And then we can possibly have a chance to look at some of these during question and answer time. And I definitely believe in academic safety, so if we go through them during that time, your names will not be shown to protect the innocent. And so now I want to give you an opportunity to just play around with Groov Pizza if you have a device. And if you don't have a device, then see if you can find a neighbor that has one. But you can just click on it right out of the Nearpod. It goes to the Groov Pizza site, and you can they have some presets if you go to specials, yeah, we'll go to Rock You, good old Queen. So then you can practice saying your song to that beat. And I had a teacher that told me music is three things: pitch, rhythm, and everything else. But rhythm is the most important. So I think I definitely concur with that. Rhythm is what moves us. It's what we put the language to when we're writing a song. So that's usually when I'm writing songs, I usually start with finding the pacing and the rhythm of the lyric, and then maybe playing around with chord structures after that. You can start anywhere when you're creating music, but this is just an opportunity, especially that's web-based, that you can work with students. If you do this activity with students, then you can go to BandLab, you can go to Soundtrap, you can go to GarageBand, Ableton, Logic, Pro Tools, whatever your familiarity and comfort is. That is great. Go for the moon. But I always find that Groov Pizza is a good place to start, just to get your hands wet with a very simple interface for creativity and creating different rhythmic patterns. So now some resource sharing. I know I went pretty fast through the protocol and then through the 5 points in why music is so important for learning. I did include this little handout that goes over those 5 points, and there's links to the articles that I use, so you can do kind of a deeper dive on them, and nice, some nice visuals, just so you can kind of have that in your arsenal. And then finally, some best practices to keep in mind. Like I said at the beginning, be mindful of your setting. Make an effort to simplify all of the potential stimuli that are in your teaching space, and especially music teaching spaces can get very, very visually overwhelming to some students. So just be mindful of that. And, it's always worth taking a student poll. Like, how can I make this space look more inviting, or more organized, or whatever, and give them some voice and choice in how to do that. Also, allow time for processing. I know in this short session, we didn't really have a lot of time to process all of this, but I would invite you to just kind of let it sink in, and to digest the information. I can always be available for questions, and we can go through some during the Q&A portion of this. And I'll also give you my contact information, so that if you have questions after this seminar, then please feel free to reach out. And then also use multiple modalities. So using visuals, especially with any other input, is very, very powerful, for not just thinking from a UDL lens, but specifically for students who are second language learners, or students who have special needs, or students who just need that extra input to solidify something. If we're using multiple modalities whenever we can, then it's just deeper learning all around. And then finally, let our classrooms be a place that we can cultivate mindfulness. And the best way to do that, in my opinion, is to be your authentic self, to model what making mistakes and dealing with those mistakes with grace looks like. There is a tendency for a lot of learners to want to be perfect, and to feel bad when they don't reach that perfection. We can always strive for excellence. Perfection is kind of unreachable, but if we keep that bar set at excellent, and that we let students know that we're all trying to become our most excellent selves, that's incredibly powerful. I would invite you to check out more about the David Z Foundation. And this is our motto, is Dave: dream, apply, visualize, empower. We just loved seeing all students thrive in their settings. And I look forward to hearing what questions you guys have. And I'll leave this up while we're doing the Q&A.